Okay, good afternoon once again. This is about our fourth video on communication. You have the videos there, so anytime you want to watch the videos, you can watch. So I will not I will not review the previous lessons. Today we are going to tackle another aspect of communication. We'll be looking at a very important topic so far as your level is concerned, so far as WASI is concerned. And we'll be looking at the barriers to effective communication. When we look at the barriers, then we look at how to overcome those barriers. So by the time you finish with today's lesson, you should be able to identify at least 6 barriers to effective communication. 6 factors that hinder effective communication. What makes communication ineffective? That is what we are looking at. What makes communication ineffective? They are the barriers. Then you should be able to explain at least 4 of the barriers. The first one is just the identification, at least 6 of them. Then you should be able to at least explain 4 of them. And then finally, you should be able to provide solution to the barriers. So let's go straight to it. Barriers to effective communication. The first barrier is very simple, straightforward. If you are doing language, you have what they call semantics. So you say semantic barriers. Semantic. And it has gotten something to do with the use of words. The use of words. So that's why I said that the use of language, the use of words. If you use jargons, as we have already learned, the receiver, your audience will not understand whatever you are saying. So you must avoid the use of jargons. If you don't use appropriate words, the information that is sent will not be understood. And if you are not able to express yourself well, if there is no clarity of expression, if you are writing exams, you know the examiner will say extra marks or will be given to the candidate who presents his materials in an orderly manner and then expresses himself or herself clearly. So if you are not able to express yourself well, then communication will not be effective. So that is the first one. The second one, obvious, so simple, is the use of wrong or inappropriate medium or media. Remember, media, we are looking at plural. If it is medium, then one. So if you use the wrong communication medium, then you will not be able to achieve the results you want. For example, we have already learned that if you want to resolve conflict, then the right medium you should use is the oral. Now, when you are advertising, which medium do you think is the best? Now, apart from oral or written, now you are also looking at, if you're advertising, are you supposed to use radio, television, the internet, or what? If you use the wrong medium, it will go a long way to affect the communication. So that is the second barrier. The third one is what we call filtering. And this is very simple. If you take the ing, it becomes filter. And when you say water has been filtered, what does that mean? If you are filtering water, what does that mean? If you understand that concept, then this becomes very simple. Now, I have already explained this thing to you in our previous video. I said at times, for fear, the subordinate will try to manipulate upward communication. Information that he's supposed to give to the manager for fear. He always wants to give the information that will be positive in the ears of the manager. He's afraid to give any information that might be construed as negative. So he will give you only the positive aspect. But you see, you need both the good and the bad in order to take good decision. So if you are not giving the accurate information, if you are not giving comprehensive information, then the manager cannot take good decision. So when upward communication is manipulated, then that is what we call filtering. So it is the subordinate who filters the information. And because of that, the manager is not able to get comprehensive and accurate information in order to take the right decision. So that is what filtering is all about. The next point, very simple, straightforward, is when the receiver does not have confidence, when the receiver does not trust the sender, then that can also be a barrier. So we said lack of trust and confidence in the sender. In other words, the receiver doesn't have confidence in the sender. The receiver does not trust the sender. You remember when you talk about the communication process, there is interpretation. When you send message, what meaning is the receiver going to give to that message? In one of our discussions, I made a very important point. I said there are some people, others will tell you, this person, if he tells you to look up, rather look down. That suggests that the person is seen as somebody who is a liar. So when you are giving information to people, they may not believe in what you are saying and may give wrong interpretation, wrong meaning to whatever you wanted. So that what you intended will be different from their interpretation. And that will be a barrier. So when the receiver lacks confidence or does not have confidence or does not trust the sender, then it can also be a barrier. The next one is what we call physical barrier. Physical barrier. Now, what is a physical barrier? I've indicated it here. The camera should be closed so that they see it. Physical. I said any physical factor that inhibits. When you say physical barrier, then we are looking at any physical factor that inhibits effective exchanges between two or more parties. Any physical factor. For example, you know at times you hear some bad noise at the background of the video. If the noise becomes so much or too loud, you see, it can affect understanding. Your mind may even go there. We are talking when you're in class and you are teaching. You know, some teachers will leave their class and go to the next class and tell them to keep quiet because their noise will be interfering with the message and you may not be able to get the right thing. So noise, the physical disturbances around can be a barrier. Now, if you are teaching and then that is what you see, at times you are teaching and then people will get up and then I'm going to visit this, and somebody gets up, another person will be looking at the person, somebody is passing, people will be looking at them. All these are physical barriers. All these are physical barriers. People will be closing doors, they'll be opening doors, and all those things, they are all physical barriers. At times, even your handwriting, some of you write horribly. You remember when we were writing your exams, I told you, I said, if you don't write well, I will let you bring my first copy, book 1 to 6. and I will teach you how to write. Because you write and we are reading, we can't even see the things you are writing. You may be writing the right thing, but if you cannot see it, you will fail. So you see, so physical barriers are also very key barriers to effective communication. So I said physical barriers, and I'm giving examples of that. And I said, when you say physical barrier, it is any factor that inhibits. It inhibits. That is a synonym for barrier. It prevents effective exchanges of information between two or more parties. The next one is psychological barrier. Psychological. Psychology has got to do with the mind. You know, at times you tell somebody you cannot play psychology on me. What is psychology? Now, psychology doesn't mean that somebody knows what is in your mind. No. The person will never know what is in your mind. It is only your action that the person can interpret. So psychology will enable you to interpret somebody's action. And it is related to the mind. So when you talk about psychological barriers, we are looking at the state of your mind at a certain point in time. The state of your mind. If you are receiving a message from somebody, and at that time you have heard bad news, the death of your beloved one, the death of your any pet person that is close to you, now that can be a barrier. If a manager has, so if you look at this point, I said psychological barriers, and I said that is the state, it talks about the state of your mind. And I said emotional trauma such as fear. Fear. If a subordinate fears a manager, he might not be able to give him or her the information that the manager requires. So I said for the subordinate, he might share important information. A subordinate might share important information. Then, for a manager, and what I'm saying is that we are looking at psychological barrier or barriers. Then we say fear can be a psychological barrier. We are looking at the state of your mind at a certain point in time. If the subordinate is afraid of the manager, he can share. He will not give important information to the manager to be able to take the right decision. Then the manager can have his thoughts affected if he receives bad information. You even give him the information and he has heard very bad news. That can affect his decision. He might take the wrong decision. So that is for the psychological barriers. The next one, which you know, we have done chain of command. And we said we have two types of chain of command, the short one and then the long one. And you know, when the chain of command is too long and oral information passes through that long chain of command, there will certainly be distortions. And I've already told you that. Research was conducted, and there were a lot of people in the queue. The first one, let's say the manager told the first person, they wanted to find out how oral communication can be distorted. He told the first person told the second person, the second person, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so to the last person. When the last person was asked to tell all of them what the last but one person told him. Then everyone was surprised of what he said, because they heard almost, each of them heard almost a different thing. And that is what happens when the chain of command is too long. You have to move, oral communication moves from here to this place. From here to this place, there will be distortion. Another distortion. Distortion. So by the time it gets to the final authority, whatever came from this place might have changed. And so the right decision may not be taken. But that may not be so, especially when it is written communication. Because as for written communication, if a letter has been written, it's the same letter that moved from here to this place, the same letter from here to this, and so on and so forth. So that is long chain of command. It causes distortions. The next one, which is the 8th point, is differences in perception. You understand what is meant by the word different. If one thing and another thing are different, that one is understood. So, but the next thing is, what is perception? So that is it. So the key word here is perception. What is perception? Now when you say perception, you see, the way you see things and you interpret it is different from the way another person sees it and the person interprets it. So perception talks about the way you see things and you interpret it. You may see somebody dressed in some way and you may say that this person is a prostitute, or this person doesn't respect, or this person is arrogant. Another person may see this same person and give different interpretation to that. You may tell somebody something and the person may interpret it differently. So if you are, because we have differences in perception, if I'm writing something to you, maybe the way I understood whatever I was writing, when you get it, your interpretation will be different from what I intended. So because human beings, we have differences in the way, in our perception, then there will certainly be that difference in respect of our interpretation. And therefore the intended meaning may not be gotten. So that is the differences in perception. And the last one here is information overload. When you say something is overloaded, information is overloaded. If a manager at one point in time, the manager doesn't delegate, he wants to do everything himself to the extent that he always has so much to do. You see, if you have so much information, you have so much to do, then you become confused and you may not be able to take the right decision. So information overload can also be a barrier to effective communication. So these are the barriers to effective communication. Now, let's look at the solution. Very simple, straightforward solutions. Number one, you see, the right choice of words. So look at this one. He said semantic barrier. When you use jargons, if you don't express yourself well, then that can be a barrier. So you need to choose the right words. Use simple language. Some people want others to know that they are the masters of the language, so they use big words. And some of you fail exams, especially English language, because you want to use big words, and you may even use them in the wrong context. So use simple language, the right choice of words. The next one, very simple, is that you have to also use the right communication medium. Don't use letters to solve conflict. Use the right medium. Now, if you produce your product, or if you have your product, you want people to know what is your target market. Who are those you want to sell the product to? Is it SHS students? And so what medium did you use? Did you use radio? or television or internet? Which one do you think should best be used for you to get the right results that you want? Your guess is as good as mine. So that is the use of the right communication medium. The next one is that the sender, the one who is sending the message, should have proper understanding of the social, psychological, and educational background of the receiver. Now, if you know the psychological, there are certain times, as I told you one time, it is not any time you can give certain message to somebody. It is not any time. So you have to know the psychological background of the person. You have to know the social background of the person. And that will enable you to know how to communicate effectively with them. If you know the educational background of the person, that one will even help you to use the right words. So that is for the next one. Then the next one, very simple, straightforward, is that, remember we said subordinates may not give certain information, they may share certain information for fear of their superior. So what do? If there is cordial relationship between the manager and the subordinate, if the manager operates the open door policy, what is open door policy? You know, in Twi, people will say, oh, the amount. That means you can come to me at any, my doors are open for you. So anytime you want to come to me to express your view, to ask for anything, whatever, you are free to come. So there will be cordial, there will be good relationship. When there is good or cordial relationship between the manager and the subordinate, then they will not be afraid. They will be giving the right information to the manager. So there should be warm and cordial relationship in the organization. Then the next one is very simple. It has got to do with training. So you have to train the employees on the techniques used in communication. So once the person is trained and the person has the techniques used in communication, then the person will be able to communicate effectively. So training is very, very important. The next one is that, you see, we have learned about these barriers. If you don't know that these barriers exist, how do you avoid them? So the next point is that employees should be made aware. They should be made aware of the existence of the barriers. They should be made aware of the existence of the barriers. So that is for that one. The last one here is that you should avoid personal biases and prejudices. You should avoid personal biases and prejudices. You remember one of the points we learned about lack of trust and confidence in the subordinate. If you don't have trust in somebody, then that becomes a barrier, and that will be personal bias, or it may be a prejudice. You say this person is this person is that, this person is that, this person is a liar. So you have described the person as a liar, and what it means is that anytime this person is giving you information, you think the person is lying, but the person might not be lying. So the fact that somebody lied at one time does not mean the person will lie every time. So you cannot describe the person as a liar. You don't have confidence in the person. And once you don't have confidence in the person, you might always misinterpret his actions and any information he might give to you. So these are the ways we can solve these barriers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also through once again with our lesson. Now, let's look at the objective. You said you should be able to identify at least 6 barriers to effective communication. Can you identify 6 barriers in effective communication? So identify any 6 barriers to effective communication. Then we also said that you should be able to explain any 4 of them. So at least you should be able to explain effectively 4 of the barriers. So explain any 4 barriers to effective communication and provide solutions to those barriers. This brings us to the end of this aspect. We have still not finished with communication. In our next meeting, we'll be looking at communication media. Till we meet again another time. Remember, as I always tell you, you must read your book. If you watch the video and you don't read your book, you cannot have what you are supposed to have. So you have to sit down, study your book, and that is what is going to help you. We'll meet again another time. Bye.